All right, so you're moving to Atlanta, but you don't know anything about it. Let's go over the basics to get you started. We've got the map of Atlanta pulled up. You see the red dotted line denoting the actual city, which locals for some reason get very hung up on this, even though we all spend plenty of time outside the actual city. And we've got Interstate 285, which we commonly refer to as the perimeter. And locally, you're either known as being ITP, inside the perimeter, or OTP, outside the perimeter. Major interstates, we've got I-75 coming from the Cobb northwest side. We've got I-85 coming from the northeast Gwinnett side. And we've got I-20, which bisects the city. Now, where 75 and 85 converge is the connector. There is never a time of day or day of the week where traffic will not be really bad in that area, so make sure you plan ahead, especially in regards to rush hour. Other traffic hotspots are gonna be anywhere 285 converges with another major highway. So this junction here, this junction here, this junction here, and this junction here. Now, if you're planning on working in the city but living in the suburbs, your worst commute is probably gonna be coming from the north side. Second worst, I would put the Gwinnett side. Third worst would probably be coming from Cobb. Fourth worst would likely be directly south of the city. And then depending on the interstate, of course, coming in from the east or west side of town is going to be the least congested commute on average. Let's discuss major amenities and places of interest. You've got Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport in South Atlanta here. There's also a commercial airport in the Chamblee area. The most popular shopping district is probably here in Buckhead, where you have Lenox Mall and Phipps Plaza. Midtown Atlanta is gonna be your major commercial arts district, where you have Fox Theater, the High Museum, and many other popular destinations for tourists. Downtown Atlanta is going to have other tourist attractions like the aquarium and the Coke Museum. But to be honest, at the moment, downtown Atlanta is not a super popular spot for locals to congregate. It's definitely more on the touristy side. The zoo is in Grant Park. The Falcons play at Mercedes-Benz on the west side of downtown. The Braves play at Truist Park in the Smyrna area. And the Hawks are downtown as well. Stone Mountain is a popular hiking destination for locals throughout the year. In the winter, they turn it into Snow Mountain. If you've ever experienced real snow, that's gonna be a good laugh for you. The Chattahoochee River runs through most of the state and is a fantastic amenity for locals, whether you're floating the hooch, fishing. I can't say it's the cleanest, but we do take a lot of pride in the hooch here in Atlanta. Our most popular park is going to be Piedmont, and the largest park in Atlanta is actually now the West Side Park, which is only open in a limited capacity, but is very beautiful. And for those of you worried about being near green space or parks, we are a city in a forest. You literally cannot get away from green spaces, tree canopies, and parks. So that is one of my favorite things about living in Atlanta. Now, Atlanta is not a dense city. We are sprawled out, and you will need to own a car if you live here, or you'll probably want to rent a car if you're visiting. But let's talk about the public transportation that we do have. We have MARTA, which has a robust bus system throughout the majority of the metro, but it does have limited heavy rail, which we can look at here. So we've got the gold and red line going north-south, and we've got the green and blue line going east-west. So you can certainly utilize the heavy rail in Atlanta, especially from the airport. It can be very convenient. However, you've obviously got to be a reasonable distance to one of the stations. There is typically free parking depending on which station you're talking about. So while it is limited, many locals make great use out of it. In particular, heading to the airport, instead of going down there and parking long term, you can park at one of the stations and commute by train right into the airport and vice versa. And I believe a one-way MARTA ticket these days is still $2.50. Now, because we are so sprawled out and have such limited public transportation, the Atlanta Beltline has been one of the most popular and significant amenities to come to Atlanta in the last 25 years, 50 years. So let's take a look at that, because even a lot of locals still don't really know what the Atlanta Beltline is. So this is the Beltline, and if you go to beltline.org, if you're really interested in it, it's a great resource to really understand all the ways that you can utilize the Beltline. But this is the perimeter that we were just looking at. So this is a circle within the circle. Downtown is here, and this is an old railway corridor that has been ripped up and paved. And because you can now walk, run, bike, or scooter along the Beltline, it has created some connectivity amongst all these neighborhoods. It intersects in a way that we previously did not have. For example, I own a home in the Beltline neighborhood of Peoplestown, and from the walking distance entrance to the Beltline at D.H. Stanton Park in Peoplestown, if I so choose, I can head southwest and go through neighborhoods like Capitol View all the way around to the west side of Atlanta, where there are some fantastic new amenities popping up every day, and I can go all the way around in a loop if I wanted to. But this has created a much better experience for enjoying the city of Atlanta. Probably the most popular enjoyment of the Beltline is going to be on the east side around Inman Park and Old Fourth Ward. For example, you can now go get a fantastic lunch in Inman Park, which is a nice walkable area with plenty of good restaurants, and then you can walk off those calories by hopping on the Beltline, heading north, and go up through Piedmont Park. You could stop at Pont City Market for a little shopping along the way, and when you have finally tired yourself out, you can take a nap in Piedmont Park, and then you could go on and enjoy Midtown, all without ever having to get in your car for those multiple trips. So again, a paved loop around downtown doesn't sound like anything to write home about, but for a city starved for density with poor public transit, not only has the Beltline been a fantastic amenity for locals to enjoy, but it has also had a major impact on the value of real estate for all the neighborhoods it goes through. And because it's been such a popular amenity for locals, you're seeing a lot of businesses focused on developing all around the Beltline. So it's spurring a lot of economic development in these areas. Next, let's take a step back and look at the counties of Metro Atlanta so we can discuss things like tax rate and school quality. So we have the entire metro pulled up here. Again, you can see the perimeter that we discussed earlier. This would be downtown Atlanta, and you can see there are 4 counties which reach inside the perimeter. Now, school quality is a hot topic of debate and can vary quite a bit within a county itself. However, if you want my anecdotal opinion based on working in this industry for many years, this is how I would rank not every county, but the most common counties that people are commuting into the city of Atlanta for. So I put Cobb number 1 and Gwinnett a close 2, although Gwinnett is known for having great resources for STEM-focused schools and at-risk youth. So depending on your priorities, you may want to reverse that order. Now, Fulton can get a bad rap overall, but the reality is the schools in North Fulton are often very good, while unfortunately the schools in South Fulton don't have as good of a reputation. And for those of you who are working with a lower budget, but you're raising a family, you want to be reasonable to the city, and you need good schools, I always recommend taking a look at Fayette County, which is known for having great public school options. Now, this does not mean there are not fantastic schools in every one of these counties, but in my experience, these do seem to be the most desirable counties for families raising school-age children. We also have many charter school options, though for the most popular ones, there often is a waiting list to get approved. And I would also add that many people coming from more expensive areas like either coast of the country are very surprised at the reasonable cost of private schooling in the Atlanta area. So there are other options for you to look into if you're not satisfied with your public school choices here. Now, understanding what you can expect to pay in property taxes can be really challenging because it changes in each county. It is dependent on which city you're in and how old you are and a whole host of other factors. So the simplest way to understand this is going to be your average effective rate, which is basically the percentage of the value of your home that you're going to pay on average each year. So I've got the most common counties that people are interested in. Again, these are ones that are a reasonable commute into town and their average effective rate. So as you can see, the lowest is going to be in Cobb County on average. Next would be Cherokee County, followed by DeKalb County, and then Henry County, Gwinnett, Forsyth, Fulton, and Clayton. So you can see these are not huge swings, but certainly you're gonna have a decent difference in your property taxes living in a place like Clayton than you would Cobb. Here's a quick snapshot of your year-round Atlanta weather. This is a great summary here. In Atlanta, the summers are hot and muggy. The winters are short, cold, and wet. It is partly cloudy year-round, and the temperature typically varies from 39 to 89. Now, although it says partly cloudy year-round, we get a lot of sunshine in Atlanta, over 200 days a year of sun. We have 4 distinct seasons. As it said, summer is pretty intense, hot and muggy. Winter is short, cold, and wet. If you're coming from the Northeast or the Midwest, winter is gonna be a joke to you. And spring and fall are absolutely to die for. Cool in the mid 60s, low 70s, sunny, breezy. These are the best seasons in Atlanta. You won't even need to touch your thermostat. Now, in terms of cost of living, I don't want to get too in the weeds here, but I have the more significant ones pulled up for you. But really the most important ones are going to be renting and buying. Now let's talk about renting. This really depends. If you want to rent a room because you're a college student and you're trying to save money, you could do that, for $700-800 a month if you just rent one room in a home that's a boarding style house. Now on average, if you want an apartment to yourself, let's call it a 1-1, maybe a 2-1, your rent, depending on the area, is going to be between $1,500 to $1,800. And if you're looking to rent an entire single family detached home, which we do have a lot of those options, more so than many other cities I've been to, again, depending where it is, your starting budget for that is going to be around $1,900. And once you get up to around $2,900, $3,000 a month, you're gonna have your pick of the litter and be able to rent really large houses if you do have a bigger family. So depending on how uncomfortable you're willing to be, rent can be extremely cheap for you, but of course, you can spend as much as you possibly desire. I don't know why you would, but there's certainly plenty of expensive places that you can rent. And if you're looking to purchase real estate, again, it's gonna depend quite a bit. If you only need, a studio condo, you can still buy something in the perimeter and even a pretty good area in the mid 200s, let's say, or even cheaper in some instances. It's gonna be small, it's gonna be dated, and don't forget your monthly HOA, but you can definitely purchase smaller living spaces on a budget in Atlanta. But let's talk about average, because I think that's the best benchmark. The most average home a person is looking to buy is a 3-2 with, let's say, a minimum 1,400 square feet. Single family detached home inside the perimeter. Your average is gonna be around $400,000. If you want something that's decent, has some renovations, I think your budget's probably gonna wanna be at least $450,000. And unfortunately, once you get below 365, you're looking at homes in worse areas, smaller homes, homes that have some issues going on with them potentially, or of course, homes that are just much further out from the city. And of course, like anything else, this can go as high as you possibly want it to go. You can spend millions and millions of dollars to live in some of the most desirable places around Atlanta. But I would use $400,000 as a benchmark for the average cost of a home right now in the Atlanta area. Let's discuss major places of employment, okay? A lot of the people I help relocate work in the medical field. So we've got CDC and Emory University / hospital in the North Decatur area. We've also got what we call Pill Hill in Sandy Springs, which is 3 major hospitals and thousands of smaller practices. So those are 2 significant areas for healthcare workers to be aware of. Of course, there are other major hospitals around the city as well. If you work in TV or film, a lot of people wanna know where they should look to go. It's very spread out, unfortunately, but the major ones would be Trilith in Fayetteville, which is brand new and really nice. Tyler Perry Studios is basically all of Fort McPherson, which is in South Atlanta. And then you've also got some popular film studios in the Chamblee area. And there are others as well, but those are the most common ones. If you work in tech, a lot of the big companies like Google and Facebook are opening up around Midtown and the West Midtown area, so gonna be closer to downtown Atlanta. If you work in higher education, we've got a lot of fantastic institutions. Of course, we've got Georgia Tech in the Home Park area. We've got multiple historically Black colleges and universities around the west side of Atlanta. We've got Georgia State, which is downtown and continually spreading south towards my neck of the woods. And we've already mentioned Emory in the North Decatur area, though it has multiple campuses and multiple hospitals. So be careful when you're researching that you're looking at the appropriate place for your situation. Again, the airport is in South Atlanta. That's a huge driver of the economy and supports many jobs in the Atlanta area. Also in that area is the Porsche headquarters. And UPS headquarters is just north of Sandy Springs. That's obviously a major employer as well. But we've got at least 17 companies headquartered here that are in the Fortune 500 and over 23 that are in the Fortune 1000. So we've got a diverse economy here. This is a fantastic place to begin or propel your career in many different industries. Let's finish by breaking down the different sections of Atlanta, or at least how I see them, having lived here since 2008. These are gonna be some big generalizations, but this is all meant to give you a basic sense of what the different sections of Atlanta are like. So first up, we have the inner core neighborhoods centered around downtown. These are typically high-end desirable neighborhoods that are close to the Beltline, very popular and often very expensive. Neighborhoods like Grant Park, Inman Park, Reynoldstown, Cabbagetown, Summerhill, Peoplestown, Virginia Highlands, Mechanicsville. There's a lot of great inner core neighborhoods, and most of them are going to have convenient Beltline access. Then we have the villages of Buckhead, which takes up a huge space on the north side of town. There's over 20 villages of Buckhead. Again, Buckhead, typically referred to as the Beverly Hills of the South. There's a lot of wealth concentrated here, and because of that, you're gonna get some high-end retail shopping and other amenities. Next to Buckhead, you have Vinings, which is another very high-end, expensive area, which is actually in Cobb County, which could be relevant for you depending on what school system you're looking for. We have the Chamblee, Doraville, Embry Hills, Tucker, Northlake area, which is a diverse portion of the northeast side of the city. Some great food up this way with Buford Highway, and this is one of the fastest growing parts of the city currently. We've got North Druid Hills, which is also a pretty expensive area, large Jewish population on this side of town. As we head east, so we've got Decatur, North Decatur, Avondale, and Scottdale, which I would say probably the most established areas on the east side of town. City of Decatur in particular is very desirable because of the quality of the public schools and the dense walkability of Decatur Square. So that's a very expensive area, and don't be deceived by a Decatur address. It does not necessarily mean it's in the actual city of Decatur. Scottdale and Avondale I talk a lot about for great value while being close to an area like downtown Decatur. As we head south of here, you're gonna get neighborhoods that are beginning to gentrify on the east side of town, in particular East Lake and Belvedere Park. You've got some nice neighborhoods in between like Lake Claire and East Atlanta Village. Looking at the south side of town, we've got the Tri-Cities, Hapeville, East Point, and College Park. These places can get a bad rap in the media. I think they're fantastic places to live for the most part. Great proximity to the airport, obviously, but also you're really not far from anything. And the value that you're gonna get in this area is typically gonna be much better than neighborhoods on the north side of town. I also really like the architecture of the homes in this side of town. We've got the west side of Atlanta, which is going to include neighborhoods that are all in various phases, if you will. The neighborhoods that actually border the Beltline are typically being built up more rapidly than the ones that do not. So you've got neighborhoods like West End and Ashview Heights and Mosley Park, which are starting to get fairly expensive considering where they were a few years ago. And you've got other neighborhoods in this area that unfortunately are still dealing with a lot of issues like drug activity, thinking a place like Dixie Hills and Oakland City. Unfortunately, these areas can be a bit dicey. Doesn't mean there aren't good places to live in those neighborhoods, just means you wanna be careful and know exactly what's going on in the street that you're looking at. You've got West Midtown. I was calling it the Upper West Side, but it seems like West Midtown has solidified. This is an area, it's got a little bit of an industrial feel. Blandtown in particular has probably the best food scene inside the perimeter outside of Chambly. A lot of the Michelin star restaurants that were just awarded were awarded to restaurants in the Blandtown and general West Midtown area. So this is a great spot. If you're a foodie, there's also some really good high-end shopping at the West Side Provisions District. So this has really shot up to be a very desirable area to be within the last few years. In this southeast quadrant, it gets way less dense. It opens up, really in many instances doesn't even feel like you're in the city anymore. There's some areas where you may read some scary things in the news about places like Gresham Road. However, I can't tell you how many neighborhoods and subdivisions I've been in this side of town that are just often retired professionals, working class people, quiet subdivisions that are well kept, places I wouldn't have any issue living in. There's also some great mid-century modern communities, specifically around this junction here. I've done a lot of videos about some really cool architecture. So your dollar's definitely gonna go further in this side of town. You gotta make sure the amenities that you're looking for are around or close proximity to you. And like anywhere else, you wanna make sure that you're looking at how the homes are maintained on that street, go during different times of the day, and always speak to neighbors if you have the opportunity. And on the southeast side of town, you've got Camp Creek, which again, unfortunately, if you Google these places often, you're going to get really bad reviews or people saying negative things on the internet. However, this is a very lively area. There's a lot of development, a lot of new build communities, whether it's townhomes or condos or single family new construction communities. There's actually a lot of good shopping, probably some of the highest concentration of high quality shopping on the south side of town in this area. So that's been a great place for my clients who are on a lower budget, who are particularly interested in new construction to look. So those are some of the major sections. Like I said, this is a gross generalization. This is only intended to give you a broad sense of somewhat the different sections of Atlanta. As I'm constantly saying, Atlanta really can't be broken down into neat little cookie cutter sections. Things change rapidly from neighborhood to neighborhood, subdivision to subdivision, and street to street. So make sure you don't cross an entire neighborhood off your list just because you read something scary on the internet. You're gonna wanna have your list of priorities, which usually come down to commute to work, buying something that you like within your budget, maybe being close to a certain amenity, friends or family. And then of course, it's gotta have the vibe that you're looking for. And of course, you do want your family to feel safe. However, there are great places to live in every single part of Atlanta. So there you have it. Those are some basics of living in Atlanta, Georgia. If you've really not spent much time here, hopefully that helped you understand it a little bit more. And just FYI, if you do need help relocating to the Atlanta area, whether you're renting or buying, this is what we do. This is why I make these videos. We are a real estate company focused on relocation. We have done this as much, but probably more than any other realtor group in the metro Atlanta area. So we've got our systems down. Book a free consultation, book a Zoom call with me. We can talk about what your intentions are and make a plan for making that happen as soon as possible. We love when our viewers become clients.